Magandang umaga po sa ating lahat. Ano ba ang mukha ng kahirapan? Kailan mo masasabing mahirap ang isang mamamayan? May connection ba ang kahirapan sa bilang ng mga mamamayan? Mga ilang taon na po nakalilipas, nagpulong ang mga kabataan ng ASEAN dito sa Manila at ang paksa ay kahirapan. Tinanong ang isang Pilipina at ang tanong ay simple lamang. Kailan mo masasabing mahirap ka? Ang sabi ng bata ay ito: kung wala po akong maisasaing sa almusal, sa tanghalian at hapunan, mahirap po ako. Tinanong ang isang taga-Singapore na kabataan, kailan mo nadarama na ikaw ay mahirap? At ang sagot ng taga-Singapore ay, kung sira ang aming electric rice cooker. So dito po makikita na natin ang pagkakaiba ng pananaw ng mga kabataan kung ano ba ang kahirapan para sa kanila. Iba't ibang pananaw tungkol sa kahirapan. Inalam ng pamahalaan kung sino-sino sa mga Pilipino ang mahihirap at hindi nagtagal nagkaroon ng conditional cash transfer. Kamakailan, sa aking panayam kay Deputy Governor Diwa Ginigundo ng Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, sinabi niya na totoo na tatlo ang pinagmumulan ng ekonomiya ng Pilipinas. Una ay ang foreign remittances, pangalawa ang high consumer spending, at pangatlo ay ang kita mula sa business process outsourcing. Kumpirmado po ito ng Bangko Sentral. Malaki ang foreign remittances, malaki ang kita mula po naman sa mga BPOs, kaya't maraming mga kabataan, maraming mga estudyante ang gumugugol ng malaki. Sinabi po na sa mga kabataan pa lamang na nag-aaral, makikita na ang spending pattern. At isa ito sa dahilan kaya't lutang ang ekonomiya. Panuhin po natin si Ginoong Ramon Falcon. Siya po ay isang Economic Development Specialist ng National Economic Development Authority. Siya po ang kinatawan ni Kalihim Arsenio Balisacan na siyang Economic Planning Secretary at Director General ng NEDA. Narito rin po si Dr. Jose Sandejas, isang accomplished businessman at kasalukuyang Chairman at Chief Executive Officer ng Mantrade Group of Companies at abala sa mga samahang tulad ng Parents for Education Foundation, St. Scholastica's Research and Development Foundation, Meralco Foundation, Circle Foundation at Catholic Vote Philippines. Narito rin po naman si Ginoong Gary Olivar, isang trustee ng Foundation for Economic Freedom. Simulan po natin ang ating talakayan ngayong umaga. Bigyan natin ng pagkakataon si Ginoong Falcon ng NEDA na balitaan tayo kung ano ba ang nagaganap sa bansa. Let's have the presentation.
Magandang umaga po sa ating lahat. Ako po si Ramon Paul Falcon mula sa Pambansang Pangasiwaan sa Pagpapaunlad at Kabuhayan. Hindi ito bagong ahensya, ngunit ito higit na kilala bilang NEDA or National Economic Development Authority. Nais ko pong ibahagi sa inyo ang isang presentation na aking pinamagatang Social Development and Poverty Reduction in the Philippines. Ako po'y galing sa Social Development Office ng NEDA, kaya nais ko po kayong bigyan ng konting mga datos at impormasyon patungkol sa ginagawa ng pamahalaan laban sa kahirapan. Sige po. Next, please. Okay. Siguro yung outline ko, I will just tackle some mga accomplishments, some features of Philippine poverty, and then I will focus on the Philippine Development Plan, PDP, kung anong ginagawa natin upang tugunan ang kahirapan. Sige po. Next.
Next slide.
Yeah. Para po sa ating kaalaman, bagamat maaaring alam nyo nito, medyo umuunlad ang ating bansa dahil ang ating gross domestic product growth rate noong 2013, last year, ay nireport po na 7.2% ang growth in 2013 at 6.8% naman noong 2012. Kaya ito po ang ating target sa Philippine Development Plan are 7 to 8%. Sinasabi natin may rapid economic growth kapag 7 to 8% ang annual growth rate. Kaya in 2013, ito po ay ating nakamit. Ngunit yung iba naman pong mga macroeconomic indicators tulad ng investment to gross domestic product ratio, ito po ay 22, ang target natin 22% investment to GDP ratio. In 2013, ito po ay 21.1%. In 2012, 20.3%. Kaya hindi pa natin nakakamit yung target na yan. Sa employment naman po, ang target natin ay 6.8 to 7.2% unemployment rate. In last year, 2013, ang unemployment rate ay 7.1%. Ito ay medyo lumala ng bahagya kumpara dun sa 2012, taong 2012, 7% ang unemployment rate. Yung poverty incidence, percentage po ng population, ang target po sana natin sa Millennium Development Goal ay by 2015, mapababa ang antas ng kahirapan sa level na 16.6% by 2015. Ngunit alam natin na ito ay ating kasalukuyang binubuno pa. In 2012, nung last Family Income and Expenditure Survey, nireport na 25.2% ang poverty incidence. So 25.2% ng population natin na 97 million, ito po ay humigit kumulang 4.2 million families or 23 million Filipinos. So hindi pa natin nakakamtan ang target na to. So, next. Okay. Makikita naman natin na umuunlad ang ekonomiya, ang capital formation or investment ay lumalaki mula 1991 to 2001 to 2010 up to 2013. At medyo malaki ang household consumption expenditure, yung black na solid. Lumalago din ang government consumption at saka So nakikita natin over the years, the economy has been growing. Next, please. Yeah, the lion's share in terms of sector, kung meron tayo agriculture, industry, and service sector, gaya ng sinabi kanina ni Mr. Melo Acuna, yung service sector ang medyo mas lumalago kumpara sa industry at sa agriculture. Yung solid black is the fastest growing sector. Okay, service sector. Nandiyan ang business process outsourcing, yung mga call centers. Next, please. Okay. Sa poverty reduction, ano ba ang ating mga nasabing accomplishments? Based on latest data, well, meron tayong mga indicators na tinitingnan sa Millennium Development Goals, health, education, poverty, at iba pa. Meron namang mga targets na nami-meet o naabot natin. 9 out of 15 indicators in health, for example. Meron namang massive reforms in the curriculum, in school basic education, tulad ng Kindergarten Act, Enhanced Basic Education Act, na kung saan ating programa ay Kinder to 12, K to 12. At social protection mechanisms, meron tayong sponsored program under the National Health Insurance Program at social pension for poor senior citizens. National Shelter Program sa housing, meron naman tayong accomplishments. Next. Okay. Kung titingnan natin ang poverty incidence, bumababa naman to mula sa 1991, I think 44% yata in 1991. In 2013, ito ay ni-report na 25.2%. So 25.2% of the population are living below the poverty line. So medyo bumababa naman over the years, pero sinasabi mula 2012 2009 to 2012, medyo slight reduction lang. 2009, it was 26.3%. In 2012, poverty was reduced to 25.2% of the population. Okay, next. Nais ko lamang, hindi siguro makita, yung ating Philippine Development Plan, although hindi natin nakikita, ang topmost goal is still poverty reduction, inclusive growth, poverty reduction, and employment creation. Yun yung pinakataas na overall goal ng ating administration. At this is supported by rapid and sustained economic growth goals, job generation, investment, competitiveness, financing, education, infrastructure development, and science and technology. Okay, makita naman natin yung mga dekahon ng mga goals and objectives in support of the topmost goal, which is poverty reduction in multiple dimensions, massive quality employment generation or creation. So inclusive growth pa rin yung ating main objective or goal in the plan for 2011 to 2016. And this is supported by national security, good governance, and ecological integrity. Yung nasa tatlong pillars at the bottom. Okay, next. Yeah. Yung strategies natin in the Philippine Development Plan ay ang major strategies or strategiya ay ang sumusunod. Improve the responsiveness of poverty to growth, which implies higher incomes and therefore reduced income poverty. Number 2, enhance the provision of basic services, education, health, social welfare, housing, health insurance, to lower the incidence of multidimensional poverty. Yung multidimensional poverty, poverty in terms of income plus poverty in terms of low access to health, education, and other services. Yeah, maraming dimensions. And then increase resilience to disasters and calamities to improve our quality of life. Okay. So those three, no? Improve responsiveness, poverty and growth, improve delivery of basic services, and then resilience to disasters, climate change, and extreme weather events like typhoons, floods, etc. Next. Ito. In the updated Philippine Development Plan, we are focusing on geophysical dimensions. We are clustering provinces into 3 major clusters. Yung category 1 province are those with high incidence, high number of poor or high magnitude of poverty. Itong leftmost, yung green areas. So ito yung provinces with there are growth opportunities but not for the poor. And then the poor cannot actively participate in the growth process. These are the high magnitude or high provinces with high or large number of poor. Yung second category naman of provinces, these are the provinces with the high proportion or percentage incidence or share of poverty. Ito naman yung mga pula na provinces. These are very remote, sparsely populated provinces with limited growth opportunities and confronted by, more often than not, conflict and disasters. And then yung third category, ito yung category 3, yung provinces prone to multiple hazards or disasters. So we're going to focus on these provinces, category 1, 2, and 3, because these are the poorest and vulnerable provinces. Meron top 10 provinces in the category 1, meron ding top 10 provinces in category 2, and then there are about 30 provinces in category 3. You will find the list in our report. For example, yung category yung cluster, yung category 3, nandun yung Eastern Visayas provinces, yung tinamaan ng Yolanda and other disasters. Okay. For example, Ilocos, Cagayan Valley, Calabarzon, Eastern Visayas, Western Mindanao, Caraga provinces. So we have a long list. Okay. So what this means is that we're going to focus interventions based on these poor provinces.
Okay.
Next. Okay. And so, depending on the province where you're located, the poor are located, we will create the growth opportunities depending on the needs. Yung skills training for Category 1 and employment generation, economic mobility of labor, human capital, and infra development for the Category 2, and then income diversification, social protection, and disaster risk reduction for Category 3, which is the provinces vulnerable to multiple hazards. Okay, next. Let me give you a flavor of some of the programs that we are implementing to address poverty. For health, we have the Kalusugan Pangkalahatan or Universal Healthcare Program. In education, we are focusing on basic education, elementary and high school, technical vocational education training led by Technical Education Skills Development Authority or TESDA. We're also making higher education competitive and responsive to national development goals through scholarship provision. Next. Social protection. I think we will be discussing later on the Pantawid Pamilyang Pilipino program. This is part of the social protection interventions to address the poor and vulnerable. Yung social protection and health insurance for the vulnerable, as well as convergence mechanisms. And then sa housing, we're trying to provide a menu of housing options and assistance. We are focusing on the informal settler families in Metro Manila. We're trying to build partnerships with the private developers, stakeholders, to pursue the policy agenda for socialized housing, which is security of tenure for Filipinos, Filipino families. Next. Okay. Nabanggit ko na itong ating baseline for poverty incidents in 2012. Income poverty, which is the poverty measured using your income. I think the poverty threshold or the poverty line that was measured in 2012 was 7,890 pesos. So if you are a poor family, if your income in the Philippines is below 7,890 pesos per month for an average family of 5 members. And ang target natin is to close the gap. Now, in 2014, we want to reduce this to 23 to 25%. In 2015, 20 to 23%. By 2016, about 18 to 20%. And yung multidimensional poverty naman, this is the poverty measured using income as well as other dimensions like health, education, standard of living, electricity, access to electricity, and housing. It's 28.2% in 2008, measured by the United Nations, and we want to bring it, to lower it to about 16 to 18% by 2016, the end of the Philippine Development Plan under the Aquino administration. Yeah, next. Okay, I mentioned the Millennium Development Goals and our poverty program, and maybe I'll end with the Pantawid Pamilyang Pilipino program or the 4Ps. Sige, next. In the Millennium Development Goals, we are confident that we have a high probability of attaining the goals and targets for food poverty, education for school participation or enrollment, infant and under 5 mortality rate, tuberculosis incidence, access to safe water, and access to sanitary toilet facilities. I think we have already achieved the sanitary toilet facilities target. Medium probability of attainment, income poverty, nutrition, the underweight children. Unfortunately, we might miss the targets because we have very low performance in the cohort survival rate in education. Yung cohort survival rate means those who enroll in grade 1 as a class or a cohort finish grade 6, reach grade 6 as a group or as a batch or as a cohort. This is quite low. Gender disparity, male and female, in education and political participation, we have a low status. And then maternal mortality ratio, I think the target is 52 maternal deaths per 100,000 live births. We have 221 maternal deaths in 2010. And then access to reproductive health and then combating HIV/AIDS. These are low probability targets. But we're trying to double and triple efforts to raise the performance dito sa low Millennium Development Goal targets, because these are also very important in health and education and gender equality. Next, please. This is to give you a flavor of the subsistence incidents, yung food poverty. Those who are not able to meet the food requirements on a daily basis, there was a slight improvement between 2009 and 2012. It was reduced from 10.9% to 10.4% of the population who are food poor. But as you can see, there are disparities across regions. Autonomous region for Muslim Mindanao has a very high subsistence, the proportion of the food poor is very high. 25.1% of the population are food poor in that region. While in NCR, it's only 0.5%. Okay, next. Poverty incidence. If you measure it from income, based on income, we slightly improved from 2009 to 2012 from 26.3% to 25.2%, but this is statistically insignificant. This is not statistically significant, by the way. It's still a high poverty incidence at 25%. More than 1/4 of the population are poor. And again, ARM and other regions are also worse off. Yung in ARM, 55.8%, more than half are poor in the population. Next, please.
Okay.
So I mentioned we have 3 categories of provinces that we are targeting. With the most number of poor, those with high poverty incidence, and category 3, those which are subject or prone to hazards and disasters. Okay, next. Okay, mayroon po tayong mga programs and projects that are being implemented. The Kapit-Bisig Laban sa Kahirapan, Comprehensive and Integrated Delivery of Social Services, implemented by DSWD. This provide block grants to barangays to develop small-scale, community-level infrastructures like water, 150-meter road, access roads, health centers, daycare centers, school building, etc. We also have the Sustainable Livelihood Program, which is the former Self-Employment Assistance Kaunlaran, SAYAK. We provide loans to development groups for enterprise purposes. Community-based employment program being rolled out by the Department of Labor and Employment. Universal Healthcare or kalusugang pangkalahatan of the DOH, and the National Health Insurance Program by the PhilHealth. Okay. So we have a series of several anti-poverty programs which we are implementing and continuing to address poverty. Next, please. Okay. K-12, Student Grant in Aid Program for Poverty Alleviation, scholarships, Abot Alam. Yung Abot Alam program is a new program of DepEd which seeks to provide training and school instruction to the out-of-school youth nationwide. Okay.
Okay.
Next, I think we're, Community Mortgage Program for housing, Microfinance Program, and then the Pantawid Pamilyang Pilipino Program. I think I will end with the Pantawid, just a few notes more. Yes, next. Yeah, Pantawid Pamilyang Pilipino Program really addresses the Millennium Development Goals because it addresses poverty, education, health, and nutrition outcomes. Next. Based on a study conducted by World Bank, Australian Aid, and SWD, we have a positive impact of Pantawid Pamilya program. Pantawid Pamilya provides an average of 1,400 pesos a month to enrolled families, and we have about 1,400 pesos given to the poorest families monthly for a period of 5 years. In education, we have seen improvements in school enrollment among the 3 to 11-year-old, improvement in school attendance for all age groups except the youngest group, the preschoolers. And then in health, we notice improvements in the nutritional status of children, improvements in spending patterns. The families are able to spend more for health and education. And there is also a noticeably increased use of maternal and health child services in the health centers, such as antenatal care, postnatal care for pregnant women and those who gave birth, regular growth monitoring, deworming, and distribution of vitamin A. Vitamin A.
Okay.
Okay? So, I think, we need to continue with the Pantawid Pamilya to meet the challenges, to improve the educational outcomes and the health outcomes that we are targeting in the Pantawid. So we're expanding it, and then we are continuing the advocacy through the DOH and the PhilHealth beneficiaries who are identified as poor under the Pantawid Pamilya Filipino program. Okay.
Okay,
I think maraming salamat po. Yun lamang po ang aking nais na ibahagi. Thank you.
Maganda yun. Pero matanong ko po kayo, bago natin matanong itong ating mga panauhing kasama natin, no? Binabanggit na merong 7.2% growth. Ayon sa pagsusuri, may 6.8% actual growth in GDP. Pero ayon sa CIA Factbook, I checked last night, merong 7.4% na unemployment rate in the Philippines. So kahit meron kang 7.2 or 6.8 growth in GDP, it's still a jobless growth. What makes of it? Bakit po ganon? Very briefly.
Siguro po, if we look at the performance, while the economy is growing, yes, perhaps it is not in labor-intensive areas. That's why you mentioned jobless growth. We have high unemployment rate, I think 7.1% in 2013. And add to that, we have an annual population growth rate of about 1.19 or 2%. Mm-hmm. So we have a large unemployed sector, which are basically it's in the agriculture and industry sector, which are where they are located. So you're right in pointing out, sir, na medyo jobless growth kasi while the economy is growing close to the 7 to 8%, which we consider as a already rapid economic growth. Because when we say inclusive growth, it has three elements. It has to be rapid, sustained economic growth. It must generate employment, and it must, third, reduce poverty. Mm-hmm. But as you can see, the economy might be growing, but we are not able to reduce poverty, and we are also unable to create the necessary employment opportunities to put the people to work.
In your presentation, you said 26% yung poverty rate some time ago, and then it was reduced to 25%, which you described as insignificant, no? What happened to the difference? Did they all die? Kaya nawala na yung mahihirap?
Hindi naman po. Actually, yung reduction from 26.3% to 25.2%, this is just the proportion of the poor, proportion of the population considered poor or living below the poverty line or poverty threshold, which was estimated as 7,890 pesos a month. Medyo bumaba ng konti yung proportion, pero marami pa rin po ang poor kasi in 2012, we have 4,214,921 poor families, or 23,745,000 poor Filipinos or population. So, malaki pa rin po ang marami pa rin ang mahihirap. Hindi po natin na pababa ito. Kahit bumaba ng bahagya, ang proportion o poverty incidence, marami pa rin po ang ating kasi 25%, that's more than 1/4 of the population still poor.
Doon po sa inyong geographical study, binanggit niyo yung mga probinsyang pinakamaraming mahihirap. Hindi ho kaya ito coincidental na naroon yung insurgency at naroon yung mga political dynasties? Ito kaya factors kaya naghihirap yung mga tao in the area?
Tama po kayo. Based on the lessons learned sa ating plan updating, development plan updating exercise, we are derailed by conflict, by the occurrence of disasters, natural, typhoons, floods, earthquakes, storm surge, plus the man-made disasters, which are the conflict.
Like Zamboanga.
Yes, the Zamboanga siege is an example of the insurgency and the secessionist movement. All this derail and thwart whatever gains that we have made in terms of economic growth.
One direct question. Yung po bang increase in population growth is a deterrent to achieving our Millennium Development Goals?
Well, if you have a large population growth rate, actually bumaba na ho ng konti, 2.34 siya in previous years. Ngayon 1.99 na lang in 2010%. Mataas pa rin yun kasi, and you have a large family size, 5 or 6 on the average, you have to feed and clothe and provide means to the large family side, the family members who are in the. So tama kayo. There are many whom you have to feed when you have a large family size and you have a high population growth rate, even on annual basis.
Okay. Dr. Sandejas, Dr. Lito, how do you look at it? You were once with PopCom for some time. Di ba? Yung bang population growth rate talaga is a factor that we should consider do sa ating target growth rates?
Salamat po, Nelo. Na-appoint ako ni President Gloria sa PopCom, hindi para i-control yung population, but to give a broader outlook on population. And ang contribution ko po sa board doon ay to point out na the most important factor is not the population growth rate, because that rate is very deceptive. Our population growth rate is influenced by the people growing older. As people grow older, are able to live longer, the population growth continues even if you have less babies. So what is more important is not so much the population growth rate measured in terms of total population, but the most important statistic for determining the healthiness of a population is the number of births per woman. And that is a disturbing statistic in the Philippines, because whereas 60 years ago we had 7 births per woman on the average, I think Gary has statistics here where I also remember that now we are down to 3.1 per woman. This is the statistic that Gary has. But equally disturbing is that the zero population growth average number of births per woman is 2.1. In other words, once each woman reproduces 2.1 or less, the population starts to age and decrease. It might still increase for a while because health technology is allowing people to live longer, and therefore you will see an aging population growing in number, but not in the productive sector. So, in my calculations, we will reach the zero population growth rate in about 10 to 15 years without doing anything on the reproductive health bill yet. This is just the natural result of urbanization. As more and more families migrate from the rural sector of the Philippines to the urban sector, naturally they have less tendency to have children when they come to Manila, because in the province they have easier access to food, transportation, living quarters. But the moment they come to Manila and they stay mostly in the squatter areas, work is hard, food is hard, education is hard, they naturally have less children. So by the sheer process of urbanization, the population growth is dropping. The number of children per woman is dropping. Also, the other factor in dropping the population growth measured by number of children per woman is the number of working women. Worldwide, the percentage of women who are working or are in the workforce is increasing very rapidly. And
So it's a deterrent to growth in population.
that's naturally happening without feeding the population birth control pills or anything else. So our population, which is our strength at the moment, according to Hong Kong Shanghai Bank and according to Citibank, we are blessed with a young, educated population whom we are able to send to business process outsourcing centers to do software and to do overseas foreign work. And that's basically the strength of our economy because we earned almost $40 billion last year from those two sources. Those are the registered remittances. No?
Okay.
So they are saying these two very noteworthy institutions, Hong Kong Bank and Citibank, are saying that our strength is our population.
Okay.
And here we are, we're trying to make moves to kill the goose that laid the golden egg. So that was my role in POPCOM. I was trying to point that out to...
Did they listen to you in the first place?
Yes, but there's so many other factors because so many transnational agencies like the UN, US, and even within our own government are really trying to hear the push by the contraceptives makers to push the RH bill and so on. No? I think many of our countrymen are influenced by what they see every day. 60% of the population of Metro Manila are squatters.
Okay.
So everywhere you look, the first thing you'll see are squatters and the number of children there because they have no place to play except in the streets. So the natural conclusion of most Filipinos is that we are overpopulated.
But in truth and in fact,
in
we're
truth,
not.
in statistics, the population, the birth rate per woman is dropping very fast. So we are not in terms of present situation, but 10 years from now, I think we will start to age also like the rest of the world.
Okay.
Thank
For
you.
the information of our friends in the media, we also invited the UNDP representative in the Philippines, Luisa Carvalho, but she failed to come because of a previous appointment. And then we also invited the country director of the Asian Development Bank, but he failed to send a representative because of a previous commitment. So what you're saying is, despite the intervention of government, population will drop in the Philippines within the next 10 to 20 years?
Not despite, even without.
Even without.
the push to control our population, it will drop to below replacement. In my calculation, within 10 to 15 years. We
Really?
will go below 2.1.
Dr. Lito, iyong counting, hindi mo dinaan sa PICOS yan, ha?
Wala pang PICOS doon eh.
Wala pang PICOS. Okay. Gary, what do you have to say about it? Would you agree that population will go down kahit pa merong RH o walang RH? Ano ba tingin mo?
Salamat, Melo, no? At natutuwa naman ako at katabi ko yung aking... Si Doc Lito po ay chairman ng kauna-unahang trabaho na pinasukan ko after I was released from detention in 1973. It was part of the Ayala Group, so it is an honor to be beside you and to share the same side. Konting commercial po dyan.
We were happy to have a brilliant young man join us
Okay.
in the person of Gary.
1973, hindi pa pinapanganak yung marami dito. Anyway, ito pong pinakita ko kong chart kanina nung nagsasalita po si Doc Lito. As you can see, okay, in all countries in Asia, which is sample countries in Asia, magmula po noong 1960 hanggang 2010, lahat po ng mga birth rate o number of babies born to each woman, bumababa po. With or without contraception, bumababa nga talaga for the reasons that Doc Lito mentioned. In the case of the Philippines, from a high of about 7 babies per married per woman, in 1960, it has dropped by almost 1 baby per decade. So bumaba na po ng mga 3.1 by 2010. That is my first point. Okay, so you question the need. You have to question the need for a reinforced contraception program. This is already happening for all the reasons Doc mentioned. Now, second is, I will point out to you that ang pangalawa pong pinakamababa na fertility, na pagbagsak sa fertility rate is Malaysia. In this graph, it is about 2.7 babies sila ngayon per woman. Ang itatanong ko, kung sa palagay po ba ninyo, kung yung 3.1 natin ay diging 2.7 katulad na Malaysia, if we have about half a baby less per family ngayon, is that the secret to becoming as advanced as Malaysia? Hindi po totoo yan. There is no cause and effect na ganon. Yun po ang misleading dito sa mga pananalita tungkol sa relationship ng population and poverty. Now, I want to give a caveat muna. No? I was identified as a trustee of the Foundation for Economic Freedom. Now, my position on population poverty is not the position of the FEF. Although it is true na hindi naglabas ng position for RH ang FEF together with other business groups like MAP or Finex or I think Makati Business Club, PCCI, and so forth. Wala po kaming official position on poverty and population. And I suspect ang privately, ang opinion ng karamihan ng mga kasama ko sa FEF are probably for the RH bill. So I appreciate that they did not come out with an official position for or against. I think for a couple of reasons. One, because we strive to be unanimous. And we're gentlemen, we respect each other's opinion. And two, I suspect, because like me, they believe that there are other, at least equally important issues to talk about when we talk about the need to reduce poverty and promote economic growth in our country. Pag-usapan po natin ang mga position paper na nilabas na ng FEF tungkol po dito sa suliranin kung paano natin mapapaunlad ang ating bayan. What are the positions on which FEF thinks we have to make substantial reforms, okay, in order to break through under the development trap that we are in now? Kanina po binanggit ni Mr. Falcon.
Mr. Falcon.
Okay, we have had growth of 7 to 8%. Sabi niya, ang kailangan na rapid and sustained growth reduces poverty. Ano yung pangatlo? And creates employment. Dito po sa tatlong ito, yung dalawa, alam po natin hindi nangyayari. Tumataas ang poverty at tumataas ang unemployment. Pati po sa speed of growth, hindi pa rin po sapat yan. Those who took economics here before may remember a textbook by Simon Kuznets in the 70s. He was speaking about the way to develop. He said, a country needs at least 8% of sustained growth year in, year out for several years. Bago po magkaroon ng self-sustaining growth ito at umalis po at sumama po sa mga hanay ng mga developed countries, we have not had that, we do not have that. And while we do not have that, all we can do for poverty is the kinds of programs we have that have been described by Mr. Falcon, nakakatulong po pero hindi po tumatama sa ugat ng poverty. Ano po sa palagay namin sa FEF ang ugat ng poverty? Ito po ay the only way to get out of the poverty trap, okay, and the reason why we need sustained economic growth in order to do that is to improve the productivity of each Filipino. Ang ginagawa po na goods and services, ang nililikha ng bawat Pilipino, kailangan po lumaki. Para lumaki po yung kabuuan ng tinatawag natin economic pie na paghahatian ng mga tao. Kaya kahit dumarami ang mga bilang ng tao, kung tumataas naman po ang productivity ng bawat isa, hindi po magiging problema ang population growth. Yun po tingin ko, no? Pero sa issue po na increasing productivity, yun po ang stand ng foundation. Now, what we focus on a number of important, critical changes that need to happen. Hindi po itong menu na pagkahaba-haba that really only address the problem around the edges. Number one, okay, babanggitin ko na po ang aming mga manifesto para maisulat na rin ninyo. Number one, kailangan pong parami ng foreign direct investment dito sa atin. Hindi po yung portfolio investment na ang hinahabol lang ay yields sa stock market, na hinahabol lang ay liquidity sa ating bayan. Direct investment, people from abroad, bringing savings, bringing technology, bringing expertise putting them in bricks and mortar that actually create jobs. And this means amending the Constitution. Okay? Tingnan po natin kung ang ang restrictions na ginagawa natin ngayon sa foreign investment sa ating bayan. Ito po, ang mga listahan ng mga allowed foreign equity sa Pilipinas compared to other ASEAN countries. Sa mining, oil, and gas, 40% lang po ang maximum equity. Pinakamababa po sa lahat ng ekonomiya sa Southeast Asia and other parts of Asia. Agriculture and forestry, 40% ang maximum, pinakamababa rin po. Light manufacturing, 75%, pinakamababa rin po. Sa media, as you know, 0%. There are only 2 other countries where 0% ang foreign investment, China and Vietnam. Yun po ang ating model. Okay? This is not a progressive way to deal with the issue of investment. Una yan. Pangalawa, kailangan pong ibuhayin ang tinatawag na dead capital, ang lupa na ipinamahagi under land reform. Maliliit ang mga lote ng lupa na ipinamamahagi, ipinagbabawal ang paggamit nito para sa pangungutang, ipinagbabawal yung pag-trade nito, ipinagbabawal yung pagpasok ng malalaking korporasyon para tumas mo productivity ng lupa at saka na magsasaka. Hindi po tama yon. Dito po sa kanayunan, sa agriculture, nagsisimula ang problema kasi kung hindi po sapat ang pinapakain sa Pilipino dahil po sa mababang productivity sa agriculture, mataas po ang wages na kailangan sa pabrika. Pag mataas ang wages sa pabrika, hindi tayo competitive sa ibang bayan, hindi po darating ang foreign investment. Ito po ang nangyayari. Ito po ang tinatawag na non-virtuous cycle.
Okay.
Pangatlo, yung pong power and other utilities. Alam po natin, dalawa naman ang dahilan kung bakit tatlo, kung bakit hindi dumating ang foreign investor. Number 1 is mga constitutional prohibitions. Number 2 is power. Okay? Power bill. Ang sinasabi ng marami, balik ta rin, i-reverse ang IPIRA, i-unwind ang IPIRA. Ang sinasabi po namin, hindi pa nalulubos ang paglabas, ang pagtaguyod na IPIRA, ang pag-implement na IPIRA, yun po ang problema. We should push further ahead with it to matuloy ang wholesale spot market, matuloy ang open access, okay, hanggang sa mabigyan po ng sapat na kuryente, lalong-lalo na sapat din ng Mindanao, ang Pilipinas. There are a couple of other major reforms. Ito tinatawag po natin mga game changers na kailangan natin gawin upang makamit po natin ang sustained 8% economic growth year in, year out. Ang Pantawid, Pamilyang Pilipino, makakatulong po yan kasi tinuturuan po yung mga Pilipino na maging productive sa behavior nila. Pumunta sa ospital, mag-aral, pumunta sa maternity clinic, etc. Pero ito po, stopgap lang po yan. Pantawid lang po yan, ika nga, as the program itself says. At kung dadagdagan mo ng pera ang programang ito, kulang naman ng ospital, kulang naman ng eskwela, kulang naman ng clinic, ang nangyayari po, handouts na lang ang program na ito. Yun lang ang problema dyan.
All right. Balikan ko si Mon. Mon, I asked President Aquino in one of the fora we had sa FOCAP. I asked him, what is it that makes the Philippines a backwater in terms of foreign direct investments? While Thailand can get investments from foreign companies from January 1 to 31, yung atin from January 1 to August 31, bakit nagkakaganon? Bakit mas attractive yung Thailand kaysa sa Pilipinas? Sa tingin mo, anong sagka doon sa foreign direct investments getting into the Philippines? Mon.
Sa aking palagay po, malaking bagay yung quality and quantity ng infrastructure facilities. Because foreign investments will go to where it is profitable and where yung business processes and transactions are favorable or profitable to the investors. And infrastructure facilities, we still need to, our mantra should still be infrastructure. We need to raise our investment to at least 5% of GDP for infrastructure investment to be at par with the other countries that you have mentioned who are attracting foreign direct investments like Thailand,
Okay.
and other countries. I think
Okay. A good example is during President Aquino's visit to Malaysia, when one of the broadsheets said investments are coming to the Philippines, while the other broadsheet said power outages will continue to hit the Philippines. So, ano yung merry mix nito?
tulad ng nasabi ko, infrastructure investment, kailangan mag-invest tayo sa power systems, power plants to ensure a steady supply of power energy in the country to avoid outages, brownouts, and and the like.
Yeah, Dr. Lito, you were once with Meralco Foundation, pero you had nothing to do with power generation, di ba? Chairman ka ng Meralco Foundation, pero Meralco for some time, yeah. Oo nga
If
pala.
I may put a different perspective on the question of foreign direct investments, because I'm also connected with the automotive industry.
Yes, please.
I was chairman of Nissan Motors for a while, and then still with Hino. In our experience in the automotive industry, when Japan in 1980s needed to move their factories out of Japan because they were running out of workers, because their population was growing very old. There were no young people who wanted to work in factories. They moved their factories out, and when they were considering the Philippines at that time, we still had martial law. So they could not move to the Philippines because of political instability. They moved to Thailand. So Thailand was the beneficiary of the fact that we had no political stability in the 1980s. Okay. Now, how does that affect us now? Because we don't have a core set of industries that feed other industries.
Yes.
In other words, you cannot just set up one industry all alone. It has to work with other industries. A feeder of parts and sub-assemblies, like in the case of cars. So we have a hard time drawing other industries because we lost a lot of basic manufacturing at that time. It will take us some time to get back, number one. The second reason I think we don't have that much foreign direct investment now is because our strength that is being recognized is not in manufacturing, because China is such a strong competitor in manufacturing that it will be difficult to set up manufacturing plants in the Philippines. These are the places where foreign direct investments come in. Where are the investments coming in the Philippines?
Mm-hmm.
They're coming in into software services, to business process outsourcing, and these do not need that much investment because these are all people services. But even if they are people services, they earned for the Philippines close to $15 billion last year, which is more than all our exports.
Really?
So it is not bad to not have foreign direct investments, provided we have the continuing influx of work for business process outsourcing and software. What are the business process outsourcing? Hong Kong Bank has all their accounting being done here in the Philippines.
Okay.
Through computers and so on. No? So more and more of this kind of work is coming to the Philippines because of our skilled manpower, our educated workforce, and our strength in English. So I think we have to not be focusing too much on foreign direct investments because it's so difficult to compete at the moment against China and even Thailand, which has a core of base of manufacturing industries already.
Okay. Very well said. Yes, go ahead.
I will have to part ways a little bit with my old boss here on that issue. Although, Doc Lito is a PhD in engineering, so I will only say so much and not too much. Sa Rensselaer pa, no? Yung pinakasigang engineer. One of the things I do is I cover industries for my bank consulting clients, and I've spoken to different industry spokesmen. and industry leaders. The picture is mixed, okay? For example, may kinausap akong Korean businessman in the semiconductor industry. Sabi niya, alam mo, imposibleng mag-upstream ang Pilipinas. In other words, move towards value-added R&D, more sophisticated types of production role in the global semiconductor electronics value chain. Because, ang sabi niya, the Filipino is not by nature good with technology. Okay, all right. Yeah. On the other hand, you know that we have success stories in parts of the country, isolated, maybe exceptions that prove the rule, but success stories nonetheless. I believe there's a company called Fairchild in Cebu that's been successful in a fairly advanced electronics-related manufacturing. Now, in other words, it's possible, and I guess I'm just a little concerned about giving up so easily on the whole idea of trying to set up a manufacturing base. There are at least 2 cases industry turnarounds in terms of manufacturing where the idea was to go into that part of the manufacturing value add chain that relies on the Filipinos' creativeness and ingenuity. One example is furniture. Alam po ninyo, ang furniture industry sa Marikina, matagal na pong ni-write off yung sunset industry. But last year, ang gross value add sa furniture ay biglang lumaki. Bakit? Kasi nag-refocus ang ating furniture manufacturers on specialized specialty manufacturing design that capitalizes on our design skills at maraming buyers abroad. So that plus being better at marketing and distribution para na ikakabit yung ating mga furniture makers sa mga foreign importers and distributors. So we just maybe need to be a little smarter, a little wiser. The other thing is industries that are not so reliant on power. Now, I forget what was the other industry I didn't mind. While we have a problem with power, there are still other industries that, and of course, BPO is one of them, that can continue to push forward. Now, even in terms of BPO, there is room to move upstream, no, towards more, hindi lang yung voice, we've already moved back, no, we're now up to backroom services. Is it possible to move even further upstream into more sophisticated R&D that relies on international telecoms? That's possible too, but we have to make an investment in continuing to do these things.
Okay. A short reaction from Dr. Lito Sandejas.
Yes, I agree with Gary.
Maganda to eh.
I did not mean to say we should forget about manufacturing or technology-based industries. But I just meant to say na we are doing well in certain areas. Maybe we should put attention to those and not be too distressed with the fact that we're lagging behind in FDI, no? But if you'll allow me, I'd like to move to another game changer topic that
Please go
was
ahead.
talked about by Gary, no? And the game changer topic I want to touch on is agriculture. I think a large part of our squatter problem in the Philippines and our migration to the urban centers is because of the very poor outlook for agriculture. There is very little money to be made by staying in agriculture, even in the provinces. So people come to Manila in search for jobs and for livelihood. Why is this the case? If you look at our imports of agricultural products, last 2012, the latest statistic that I can get, we imported food and livestock worth $6 billion US. That is
6B.
6B, and that is production that could have come from the Philippines.
Does that include the smuggled goods that we hear of today?
That is only from the official statistics of the National Statistics Office. So what I'm saying is if you convert that into jobs, that's roughly 2.7 million jobs at minimum wage. Just converting that, okay? And therefore, if we were able to put more emphasis on agriculture in policies of government to encourage more production rather than imports, we could create a lot of jobs. We can create a lot of wealth. We can avoid some of the squatter problems that we have and the drainage, the straining of our infrastructure in the metro areas. Not only Manila, but Urdaneta, Baguio, everywhere in the Philippines,
Okay.
the cities are drawing. So I think priority can be placed more into agriculture, the support facilities, the financing, the what do you call it, the inputs, to encourage more production rather than for us to keep importing.
Dr. Lito, are you referring to the finance programs of NABCOR? Hindi yun.
Sorry, I'm not familiar with that. But
Paano kasi marami raw pera dun sa NABCOR na pinamimigay din sa media. Oo, kaya medyo, baka yun ang sinasabing programa ng agriculture. Pero hindi na siguro yun.
no, I just want to say na what we can produce in the Philippines, let's try to produce it here instead of being ready to import all the time.
Okay. Teka muna, sandali. Tanungin natin ang NEDA. Wala kayong nabanggit doon sa pagbibigay ng emphasis on agriculture? Because you have farmers cooperatives doing trading business. Now, if you have farmers cooperatives into rice imports and smuggling, quote unquote, then we're in for trouble. Mon, what do you have to say?
Sir, I totally agree with the point made a while ago by especially Mr. Gary Olivar that we need to focus on productivity. In agriculture, if we take a look at the gross value added in agriculture, hunting, fisheries, and forestry, it's the lowest, 2.8% in 2012. The gross value added in industry is 6.8%, while the gross value added in service sector is 7.6%. So mababa po talaga sa agriculture. And I think the key there is to enhance productivity of our agricultural processes. The key there is the land reform program, provide land to the farmers, and not only that, support the what you call this farming inputs like fertilizer, pesticide, water, irrigation, farming technology, and what you call yung agricultural training, extension, agricultural extension, as well as provide high-yielding seeds and other innovative farming practices.
Mon,
Yun po ang key,
sometime
to
ago,
raise the value added and
yeah,
productivity.
we talked about rice some time ago, and the basis for the forum was a statement by Roger van den Brink of World Bank, the lead economist in the Philippines, who said that rice in the Philippines is 40% higher than the world market price. And one of the reasons is government has not provided extension. So do you think that the devolution became a stumbling block to growth in agriculture? Because most of this job usually done by the central office is now being done by the local government units. May I have a short reaction? Yes, please.
The devolution, we devolved agriculture, social welfare, environment to the local government
Yes.
units. And I think that was a step in the right direction. Because local government units must be able to provide the necessary support to their activities to raise the productivity and yield and the output, in particular in the case of agriculture. I think we have to devolve authority, the power, decentralize activities from the central to the local levels, the periphery, in areas where they can do it better. And I agree that in the local government code, we devolve agriculture, environment, social welfare, national government activities. So,
Pati yung
tama
health,
po
no?
yung direction. Kailangan lang siguro support from the national government in terms of technology, innovation, and maybe funding support to Because we all know that the local government units are not uniformly endowed with resources. Many of them would still, we also devolve health services as well. They also need the support from the national government so that they can be successful in their areas of concern for the devolved functions that have been given to them.
Okay. Before we open the floor to our friends from the media, we'd like to acknowledge, kasama na rin natin si Binibining Venus Rebuldela from, si Grace. Si Grace ang kasama natin. Si Grace Ponce ng Department of Social Welfare and Development. Mukhang doon sa kabilang Aristocrat na punta, kaya medyo nahuli. Pero okay. Please join us. Alam po kasi ninyo, pag sinabing Aristocrat, meron din doon sa kabila yung serye. Malapit-lapit sa DSWD. Okay. Good morning and welcome. We're thankful you made it. Tell us what's the latest from the Pantawid Pamilya Program. Bago natin buksan ang larangan para sa mga taga-media para makapagtanong. Please go ahead.
Una-una sa lahat, magandang umaga po sa ating lahat. And pasensya na po kayo na medyo late. Hindi pala medyo late po talaga ako. Kasi po nung una po ang sinabi sa akin is I will just be here to attend and take note of the concerns. I was not informed that I am part of the panel who will be responding to the guest. But,
okay.
Just to introduce myself, I'm Mary Grace Ponce. Ako po yung Public Relations Officer ng Pantawid Pamilyang Pilipino Program. Ngayon kung ano po yung pinaka-latest sa program natin ngayon, ito po yung pagpapalawig natin sa suporta sa ating mga batang Pilipino. Na kung matatandaan po natin, ang Pantawid Pamilya is 0 to 14 yung kino-cover. Pero po ngayong taon, i-cover na po natin hanggang 18 para matiyak po na sila ay makatapos ng kanilang high school. So yun po yung pinaka-latest sa Pantawid. Although tuloy-tuloy pa din naman po yung ating pagsusuporta na matiyak na sila ay makapag-aral at tinitiyak din po natin na sila ay maging malusog.
Okay. Yun. Bubuksan natin ang floor to our friends from the media. Please feel free to ask questions. Yes, please introduce yourself and go ahead with the question. Priority will be given to our friends from the media.
Yeah, good morning po. I'm Juvie de Guzman. I came late, I'm sorry. But ang inabot ko, interesado ako dito kay Professor Gary Olivar. Kasi nabanggit niya kanina.
Saan kayo interesado? Doon sa profesor o sa sinabi niya?
Sa sinabi niya.
Okay, go. Mabuti na maliwanag. Baka makompromiso tayo. Okay.
Yeah. Kasi po, nabanggit po ninyo na kailangan natin dito sa ating bansa yung investor na foreigner. Actually, napakarami. Ang problema ho natin dito sa gobyerno natin, sa problema natin, yung red tape parang umiiral pa rin according dun sa mga nakausap natin. At hindi lang po yan yung hirap ng documentation before they get into business here. Yung tagal ng moment na pag-aayos ng papeles. So, gustuhin man natin, lalo na kayo, maganda yung intention nyo, paano natin kaya mas mapagsisikapan na ma-expedite yung documents para naman yung mga tao na gustong mag-invest dito, hindi napupurnada?
Yun. Sige nga.
Well, yun po siguro ay tanong na mas nababagay para sa mga katulad ni Secretary Lasier na hindi natin kasama ngayon. No? Tama po kayo. Actually, I was about to say kanina, there are 3 reasons kung bakit naaakit ang mga investors sa atin. At hindi po sila marami, no? Malakas ang interest, kaya lang marami, may mga restrictions nga sa ilalim ng saligang batas.
Opo.
At saka ang mga concerns sila, yung number 1 is sa saligang batas, restricted talaga sila. Ikalawa, yung high wages na bunga nga ito na napakataas ng gastusin sa pagkain.
Opo.
Ito sa atin, na bunga naman na mababang productivity sa agriculture.
Opo.
Pangatlo ay itong sa power cost na ito'y bunga naman. Sa tingin namin sa FEF, ng kakulangan ng pag-implement sa IPIRA. No?
Opo.
At ikaapat nga itong mga issue na kung sa totoo lang, ito po ay may kinalaman sa daang matuwid na gusto itaguhin ng ating Pangulo. Okay? Sa palagay ko po, ang ibig sabihin ng daang matuwid, kasama na dyan yung paglilinis, no? Na pagtangkap sa mga foreign investor dito sa atin. Yung mga tinatawag na front lines ng gobyerno na humaharap sa publiko, hindi lang po sa foreign investors, pati yung mga ordinaryong mamamayan katulad natin, yun po ay kailangan linisin. From top to bottom. Yun naman po inasahan natin, hindi ba?
Yes, Doc. Prof, Nalulungkot nga po ako kasi may nakausap po ako investor. Kauumpisa pa lang, open pa lang. Actually, after 1 month, umalis na.
Opo.
As a media practitioner, gusto nating pagandahin yung image ng bansa
Opo.
natin. No? Gusto nating tumulong. Gusto nating wag masira yung sistema ng gobyerno.
Opo.
Ang problema daw po dito, yung bukod sa nakatayo na siya, akala niya okay na.
Opo.
Parang kulang yata yung sinasabing documentation, tapos bigla siyang parang harassment na isa rin
Kulang
yan.
sa bukol.
Po?
Kulang sa bukol.
Ano ba negosyo in the first place?
Actually, ano po siya parang trading company.
Trading.
Apo.
Okay.
So, meron po tayong mga ilang tao sa ahensya na hindi ho yata sinasabi yung dapat kailanganin before they start. So, nagkakaroon ng aberya na nakapag-put up ng tao, nag-invest na, and yet biglang sasabihin ganito, ganon. So, yun po yung isang problema na sana po makatulong kayo maiayos yan.
Naku, hindi po makakatulog dyan tayo nasa na wala na tayo sa gobyerno. Kasapi po natin Secretary Lacerda.
Pero liwanagin natin, doon sa experience niya from the outside looking in, are you of the opinion that a new dairy industry is in the making? May mga nanggagatas mula sa gobyerno? Yun ba ibig mo sabihin?
Ako po no comment. We've had problems for a long time. Pero I will say this, marami po tayo nakakausap na, na in the course of my consulting work na negosyante sa iba-ibang industriya, hindi lang foreign investors. And they're always complaining about ito nga yung at the grassroots, laganap pa rin po yung tinatawag natin graft and corruption. And this turns of foreign investors na wala silang tolerance para sa ganung klaseng behavior. Kasi hindi sila tiga rito, hindi sila sanay.
Hindi nila alam yung kultura.
Hindi nila alam ang kultura. Now, some of them manage to negotiate around that and they become successful. Kaya lang, pag masyado namang unreasonable ikangay, pati sila nadadamay, hindi na rin, pati sila pati yung mga nandito umaalis. Mostly for that same reason, na naging intolerable na sa kailang ganitang klaseng kultura. Kaya nga, siyempre pinagdalasan natin lahat na magiging tagumpay ang dang matuwid kampanya na ating pangalan.
Thank you po. Isa na lang po kay Ma'am Grace, although kakarating lang niya, alam naman natin yung ginagawa nila. Thank you very much dun sa DSWD kasi nakikita natin yung effort nila. No? Pero yung iba, parang hindi napapansin, mas malaki yung highlight ng problema. But then, yung po bang Pantawid Pamilya, totoong naibibigay sa mga... Actually, may nakausap ako in Marikina, they were not able to receive any amount. And parang ang kumokontrol sa listahan, according to them, is yung barangay itself. Meron ho bang ganong na-encounter kayong problema? Thank you.
All right. Yes, Grace, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Unang-una po sa lahat, hindi po kinokontrol ng sino mang politiko yung pamimigay natin ng cash grants. Kasi po ang cash grants ay binibigay diretsa sa beneficiary. Liwanagin lang po natin na hindi po porket nakapag-attend ng community assembly ay beneficiary na sila. May mga iba kasi na kapag pinatawag sa assembly, ina-assume nila na sila ay beneficiary. Hindi po ganun yun. Yung community assembly po, yun yung first line lang na tinitignan kung sino talaga yung mga qualified at nararapat na mapabilang. Pagkatapos nun, i-issuehan po sila ng ID and then ng cash card po. Kapag sila po ay may ID na at saka may cash card o sila ay kasama na dun sa ating payroll, dun pa lang po masasabi na sila ay beneficiary na. But anyway, for that specific concern, kung mabibigay nyo po sa akin yung pangalan ngayon, we can have that check sa central office and then we will contact the person po kung ano yung mga posibleng dahilan kung bakit hindi niya po natatanggap yung kanyang cash grant. Pero doon sa pagkokontrol ng mga politiko, wala po. Pero kung meron silang mga alam na ganon, na kinokontrol ng politiko, ipagbigay alam lang po kaagad sa amin po, pwede po sa ating text hotline sa 0918-912-2813 po, pwede po nilang idiretso doon yung kanilang reklamo at saka yung specific details. Kung gusto din po nilang mag-iwan ng contact number para sila'y mabalikan, po pwede din po. At kung sila ay beneficiary, mas makakatulong kung maibigay sa amin yung household ID number para ma-check natin kaagad sa database yung kanilang pangalan at yung mga dahilan kung bakit hindi po natatanggap yung kanilang cash grants.
Yeah. Ma'am Grace, actually na-i-report na po ito, kaya lang po hindi pa po na-actionan dahil nga po, ang sabi ho ng residente, yung mga pamilya ho doon, hindi ho sila kinukuha dahil hindi daw sila kakampi. Yun po yung ibang
Ayun,
mga...
so hindi pala kasama sa listahan.
Hindi sila sinama sa listahan.
Ayun.
So yun yung malaking problema. And they are a family of no job. Nakakaawa. Yun yung dumadami yung hirap. Maraming salamat
Alam
po.
mo, yung binanggit mong yan, nabubuhay sila, walang trabaho. Alam mo, mas magandang pag-aralan niyan. Pwedeng ipwesto sa Department of Budget and Management. Paano sila nakakapag-budget
Oo
na
nga.
walang trabaho, no?
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you for the
Salamat
input.
po.
Okay, salamat. Asan si Sol? May tanong si Sol kanina. Lumabas. Okay. Yes, please. Go ahead.
Good morning po. Tracy Cabrera, from Tati sa People's Journal. Anyway, direct ko lang question kay Neda. Kaibigan natin sa Neda. I'm sure when the President holds meetings, especially tungkol sa economy, kasama kayo. Okay. Anong reaction niya sa... I just want to find out kung anong reaction ng Presidente natin. Despite the growth na sinasabi, hindi naman nararamdaman ng tao eh. Kasi I always look at the country as a family. Masasabi ko ako, tatay ako, meron tayong bagong aquarium, maganda yung garahe natin, nagpa-extend tayo ng bahay, maganda na ngayon, bago bubong natin, pero yung mga anak ko nagugutom. Oh. Di ba parang, masaya sa bahay ko, yes. Pero yung mga anak ko gutom. Is the President satisfied sa ganong klaseng growth?
Yan. Yan ang tanong. Mon, pwede mong sagutin yan without endangering your position?
Yeah. Although I'm not,
Yung reaction na niya,
based on our appreciation of the cabinet meetings, which are also attended, especially the NEDA board meetings. Well, the President continues to tell the cabinet to continue with what we are implementing under the Aquino administration. Yung right now, we have presented to him the updated Philippine Development Plan, which we hope will focus and sharpen the strategies and programs and policies in the last 3 years of the administration of President Benigno S. Aquino, 2014 to 2016. Yung mga programa po, sinusuportahan naman po ng Pangulo upang magkaroon ng ganap na reforma at pagbabago at resulta. Tulad nung Pantawid Pamilyang Pilipino program, this has been provided with support and budgetary support. We are also going to, I heard that yung patungkol sa kahirapan, yung hindi nga daw natin na darama, magkakaroon pa ng, there's a proposal to update the assessment of the National Household Targeting System for Poverty Reduction. Ito yung ginagamit na assessment survey ng mahihirap. In 2008, I think we assessed 10 million families, and we were able to identify 5.2 million families who are the poorest of the poor. Ngayon po, we will continue that assessment and scale up the survey to assess maybe 15 million families nationwide to validate the estimated 10 million poor families who really need support through conditional cash transfers, health insurance, and other support para maramdaman nila yung sinasabi natin paglago ng ekonomiya. Kasi maraming nga ang hindi nga nakakadama immediately ng gains ng paglago ng ekonomiya. Gaya ng sinabi ko kanina, para magkaroon ng inclusive growth o paglago na pangkalahatan, kailangan yung tatlong elemento, yung sustained rapid economic growth, 7 to 8% na growth rate every year, plus kailangan ding employment creation para ma-address nga yung ating mataas na unemployment rate, 7.2%. At saka yung poverty level, 25.2% in 2012. Kailangan talagang, sa Millennium Development Goal, ang target sana natin doon ay 16.6% by 2015. Kaya lang mukhang hindi nga natin makakamit yun. Based on the updated Philippine Development Plan, we are targeting poverty incidence to be lowered to about 18 to 20% range. Kaya tinatanggap natin na medyo hindi natin makamit ang targeted poverty incidence dahil kulang pa ang employment generation, kulang ang livelihood creation at saka yung mga services. But the government is focusing on social services, education, health, nutrition, Pantawid, Pamilyang, Pilipino, conditional cash transfers at iba pang mga intervention para maramdaman naman ng ating mga kababayan na naghihirap ang pag-unlad ng ekonomiya.
Okay.
Salamat po.
Yes, Sol?
Gusto ko hong malaman, ito ho bang cash program na to, nagkaroon ng epekto o impact sa employment?
Sa employment.
O kagaya ng napansin ko sa pag-iikot ko sa buong bansa, ito ay considered employment ng marami sa mga nakakatanggap. Kasi buwan-buwan tumatanggap sila nang wala silang ginagawa kapalit. Kaya parang walang productivity in exchange for the cold cash. Parang programang, ay maraming mahirap, bawasan natin ang bilang, bigyan natin ng pera. Hindi kagaya nung panahon ng matandang Diosdado Macapagal, yung EEA, ginawa nila, may sweldo yung mga mama, hinahakot, pinagtatanim ng puno sa bundok.
Okay. So, how different is this conditional cash transfer doon sa mga nauna?
At saka may impact ba?
Meron bang
Sa
impact?
tagal niyan, dapat meron ng figures.
Okay. Yes, Grace, pwede mong sagutin.
Doon sa tinatanong po ni Ma'am kanina kung impact sa
unemployment,
sa unemployment, wala po kaming isinagawang pag-aaral tungkol dyan. Ang atin pong isinagawang pag-aaral ay ayon doon sa kung ano yung objective ng program. Ang objective po ng program ay upang mapag-aral ang mga bata at upang matiyak na sila ay magkaroon ng maayos na kalusugan. Doon po na nakatutok po yung ating conditional cash transfer. Ngayon, doon naman po sa isang tanong ninyo kanina na binibigyan lang natin sila ng pera na walang anumang kapalit, unang-una sa lahat, conditional cash transfer po siya. Ibig sabihin, meron silang mga dapat sundin kapalit nung kanilang tinatanggap. Ito nga po ay yung tiyak yan na makapag-aral yung kanilang mga anak, at least 85% ng attendance. 300 po ang katapat ng attendance sa school. Bawat bata, maximum of 3 children per household. Doon naman po sa ating health grant na 500 pesos a month, kailangan pong magpa-check up ng mga buntis na miyembro ng pamilya, preventive check up para din po sa 0 to 5 years old, deworming para sa mga batang 6 to 14, at ang pagtitiyak na mag-attend sila sa family development session. Yun po yung ating mga hinihinging kapalit sa kanila upang kanilang makuha po yung kanilang cash grants.
Kaya ko ho naitanong, kasi kami sa foreign press, lagi nilang sinasabi yung how many Filipinos are earning less than $1 a day. Doon may impact yung cash ninyo. Kasi pag sa survey namin, nabawasan yung mahirap. Dahil may tinatanggap silang cash galing sa ibang lugar.
Okay, pero it doesn't necessarily mean na may trabaho. Alright. Siguro it's high time for us to look into it. Dahil baka mamaya sa halip na ma-encourage na magtrabaho, wag na lang. Pero isang issue pa rin dito, let me ask Mon and Dr. Lito. Yung bang productivity sa agriculture, nakasusi ba yon, nakaangkla ba yon sa pag-aari ng lupain? Yung bang ownership, yung ba ay mahalaga for one to be productive? Let's start with Neda.
Yes, sir. Yung tenure system, malaki yung bagay yon sa magsasaka na pag-aari niya yung lupang sinasaka. Kasi yung nakita naman natin yung under the for so many years, yung arrangements, tenurial arrangements ng farming, to a large extent, yun nung yield, the profits go to the landowner and the middlemen, leaving very little to the farmers.
Okay.
Kaya I think there is a great positive, significant impact on productivity and yield if land ownership can be provided to the farmers, especially the marginal farmers.
All right. Dr. Lito?
I agree with Mon, except that that's a conditional statement. I agree that productivity can increase once the farmer owns it, but it is conditional on the farmer being supported for the working capital that he needs, which the landowner used to provide. In other countries, when land reform was undertaken, there were services that followed, like financing for the new landowner,
Yes.
who does not have the financing that used to be provided by the landowner, and then for marketing, for the getting the inputs. So the problem, I think, in the Philippines is that we did only the first part. We did the distribution of land, but we have not followed through with the support for the farmers. So the productivity, which theoretically can increase, actually did not increase.
Okay. Pat? Yes. Go ahead. Akala ko wala ka sasabihin.
Meron.
Sige.
May dala tayong materials eh.
Preparado.
Ha?
Preparado.
Siyempre.
Go ahead.
Well, I want to quote from a paper that Secretary Balisacan himself wrote in 2009 before he joined NEDA, to head up NEDA. Ang sabi niya, obviously there have been welfare gains from land reform. Kaya lang, kulang po yan, 80 to 90% of the land redistribution objective has already been accomplished. Pero wala pa rin po tayo nakakitang ganansya. So ang suggestion niya, ang comment niya ganito, restrictions on the transferability and disposition of awarded lands have inhibited the participation of agrarian reform beneficiaries in the land and credit markets. This has stifled productivity and income gains. As a matter of fact, 1.1% lang daw ang improvement ng consumption sa mga agrarian reform compared sa non-agrarian reform areas. And it's resulted in underground renting and pawning of land reform areas at terms that are unfavorable to the beneficiaries. Kami po sa FEF, we have 5 reforms that we recommend, to follow up on land reform. Number 1 is to lift the ownership retention limit of 5 hectares, which has led to efficient farmers being unable to buy out inefficient ones. Number 2 is continue to develop rural infrastructure and increase agricultural research and development to support. Number 3 is to enable corporations to invest in the countryside, exempt them from any hectareage limits in order to free up the land market. Number 4, the Secretary of Agrarian Reform should desist from issuing notices of coverage beyond 214 in order to minimize the uncertainty over future property rights. Number 5, break up the collective CLOAs into individual CLOAs and remove restrictions on borrowing and selling of these beneficiary titles. I would suggest that these kinds of game-changer reforms are more important for government to focus on than just social programs and social services, if we really want to make an impact for the poor.
All right. Yung ba mga practicum natin, may tanong? Tracy, baka may tanong yung mga practicum natin, mga OJTs? Or Linggoy Alcoas, you have some questions today? Linggoy. Si Linggoy, bigyan muna natin ng pagkakataon before our students.
Magandang umaga po. The other night, I was just going through the CIA fact book.
Pareho tayo.
Ang naalala ko kasi. Anyway, ang nagulat ako ganito, tinignan ko yung data ng Pakistan, the former West Pakistan, at yung Bangladesh, the former East Pakistan. As you know, they broke up in 1971. Noong pong 1971, mas malaki po ang population ng East Pakistan than West Pakistan. But then I noticed that, kasi medyo luma na yung fact book ko, but a few years ago, dahil mas mura pag luma yung binibili ko sa book sale.
Okay.
Anyway.
Commercial pa.
Anyway.
Pwede na sa internet yan, kapatid. Go ahead.
Ngayon po, mas malaki na yung population ng West Pakistan kaysa sa Bangladesh. No? Yung kwan. Now, if you take note, both countries, that's why they became two geographically separate because of the partition of India into Muslim and Hindu and Sikh. No? Anyway, parehong reliyon, iba yung geography at what do you call, some other things. Ngayon, would you care to comment on that if you
Sa demographics.
can?
Okay.
What was the point, Lingoy?
Na,
Economy improved.
hindi economy, population. Yung population ng West Pakistan grew at a faster rate than Bangladesh. Even though both of them are Muslim. Kasi Muslim countries generally, for example, like in Lebanon, no? That's a tri-religion state, no? Mas mabilis na overtake ng Muslim yung Christian sa Lebanon over the past 20 years. No?
Okay.
So in the case of Pakistan and Bangladesh, parehong Muslim. Pero yung Pakistan, na-overtake yung Bangladesh.
Sa pagdami ng tao.
Ang dami.
How about
Okay.
the economy?
Yung economy, you have any idea?
No, what do you call?
Siguro, pwede sabihin natin, kaya mas nag-increase yung West Pakistan, yung Pakistan, wala kuryente. In areas where there is no power in the Philippines, makikita natin, nandun ang mga maraming Pilipino. Because they have nothing to do after sunset. Ano kaya? Dr. Lito, do you have anything to say?
No comment.
Okay.
Well, follow up lang based on your So in the Philippines, anong comparison between urban and rural at yung Luzon, Visayas and Mindanao?
In terms of population?
Relative.
Okay. NEDA siguro or... Okay. NEDA, would you care to say? Saan nandun yung population growth? Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao?
Sir, based on there was a study that concluded that poor families tend to have a large family size. And as I have presented the poor provinces, poor regions, that is ARM, Bicol, Leyte Samar area, the poor families would tend to have a larger family size, more than 5 or 6 members per family, because the average is 5. They would have a higher fertility rate, yung number of babies per woman, per mother, and then I think that was one of the basis for pushing through with the reproductive health and responsible parenthood bill.
Okay, which is now a
moderate
law.
Population.
Okay.
Thank you,
All
sir.
right. Dr. Lito, now you have something to say.
Now I have something to say. When we interviewed the families who have more children, the explanation they give is that the reason they want to have more children is because they have more chances of getting out of poverty. In other words, if only one of their children lands a job in Saudi Arabia or San Miguel, they have a passport out of poverty. So there is a desire on the part of these families to have more children, partly to help in work in the farm, as well as more chances of getting out of poverty. And I think statistically speaking, the urban average number of children per woman is less by 1 than the rural population. The average number of children per woman in the rural areas is higher by about 1.
Okay. All right.
One follow-up. How about by ethnic, by language group? Ilocano, Tagalog, etc.
Sorry, I don't have. I can look at it and.
We
try
will
to
do the
call you
research.
back.
We will do the research. We have questions from our practicum students. Oo nga eh. Mga ladies, may katanungan po ba kayo? We have none. Okay. Yung RH bill, what do you have to say about it? Is it really needed? Closing statements sa tayo, pero maliwanag na. Let me just post this for the closing statements. Do you honestly believe that God so loved the poor that He created many of them? Lito.
He did not create people to become poor. I think the similar joke to that is that the best contraceptive is wealth. The moment people become wealthy, they have less children. And the best proof of that is what's happening in the rest of the world. The richer countries have declining, aging populations. Japan, the US, Germany, Europe. Mm-hmm. So the corollary joke is, if you want to, the best contraceptive is wealth.
Okay. Closing statements. What are we to expect from Pantawid Pamilya Program aside from having beneficiaries up to 18 years old? Closing statements na tayo. Yes.
Tuloy-tuloy po ang pagbibigay ng tulong ng Pantawid Pamilyang Pilipino Program at makakaasa po kayo na tuloy-tuloy din po ang pag-improve natin at pagtitiyak natin na yung cash grants na nararapat para sa mga mahihirap ay talagang napupunta sa kanila. Maraming salamat.
Thank you. Mon, sa NEDA, you know, I've been hearing a lot of trickle down. Panahon pa ni Shell Habito nung nasa NEDA, yun na narinig ko eh. It has never trickled down yung economic benefits. Because yung trickle-down effect in the first place is non-Christian eh. Hindi makatao yun, hindi makakristyano yun. Dahil ang natitira dun sa mga mahihirap, mumu, yung nakakalusot sa salaan. Can we change that paradigm?
Sir, under the the current Philippine Development Plan, we are not espousing anymore a trickle-down economic or cascading economic processes, but rather we are focused on inclusive growth and development. We want to focus on a growth and development where it matters, and we have. I would like to cite the Philippine Human Development Report of 2013, which mentioned that there is a case for focusing development in key areas. And as I have indicated a while ago, we are clustering the geographical landscape in terms of categories of provinces which are poor, so that we can tailor fit the interventions without the need for trickle down, but on an inclusive growth and development approach. Everybody should contribute as a key player and partner in development.
Mon, has NEDA touched base with COMELEC to find out yung naging voting preferences ng mga mahihirap in these areas? Because you can correlate that and you can come up with an idea how people perceive government if indeed their votes were really counted. So, meron ba kayong ginawang pag-aaral na gano'n?
Sir, that's a good research agenda as well.
Okay.
We will consider the political behavior of people as well in a geographic spread, so that we can see maybe this can provide us with some policy and program indications as to how to better design our economic interventions based on those considerations of political, social, economic, and environmental dimensions.
Very good. One last point. Will you share with us your presentation?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
With pleasure.
Yeah. Dr. Lito, balikan natin. Parting shots. Do we need that RH law in the first place?
2 points lang po before the RH law. On the topic that you wanted to touch on, poverty and job creation, in my personal opinion, the best action of government to alleviate poverty and to create jobs is to give better management of agriculture. to produce more by supporting supporting the farmers better instead of importing whatever they can. That's my first point. The second point is on the RH law. I think there is evidence that says that all artificial contraceptives today, if you look at their labels, they all say that one of the actions of artificial contraceptives is to prevent the implantation of the fertilized ovum in the uterus. That is being an abortifacient by having that power. And our Constitution prohibits abortion. And the Constitution protects life from the moment of conception. So, in effect, all hormonal contraceptives are abortifacients and are prohibited by our Constitution. Therefore, the Supreme Court, which knows this, has to consider it and declare it as an unconstitutional law. That's basically the most important aspect of the RH law that I can say. Thank you.
Okay. Would you rather have that the contraceptives have a tag like no therapeutic claims guaranteed?
Well, then people may not buy them.
Yeah, okay. But dahil kung hindi rin lang magagawa yung gawing unconstitutional, lagyan na lang ng tag na no guarantee.
No, nilalagay nila, makakabuti ng kutis.
Yun na nga ang problema. But anyway,
Maganda yung kutis.
sige. Professor Gary.
I have a couple of points. The first one is an official FPF position, I guess. The second one is not an official position. It's my position, and that's on the RH law as a member of as an active member of the Catholic laity. On the issue of poverty, we keep on talking about government interventions, and so on and so forth. Government interventions do not create wealth. It's the private sector and the market that creates wealth. And that's why when we talk about trickle down, okay, that has been a criticized term. We're actually just talking about a middle class that grows bigger and bigger. Okay, because more economic wealth is being created, the middle class grows bigger, and as the middle class grows bigger, then middle class values like clean government, fair play, respect for the law become more popular. Okay? So, in other words, that is the key to both economic growth and cultural reform in our country. It's important, therefore, in order for the private sector to create that wealth and to create that middle class, to focus on a few selected game changers that will allow the market, okay, to create the economic development we want. And FEF has identified a number of them: charter change in order to bring in foreign investment, agricultural productivity in terms of going beyond the present land reform program, continuing reforms in the power sector, and a number of others, which I have not discussed here. My second point is, again, in my private capacity, our friend from NEDA mentioned that the poor have more children, and therefore he seems to imply that if the poor are obligated or encouraged to have fewer children, they will become less poor. Hindi naman po totoo yun, as pointed out by Dr. Sandejas. Okay? Wealth is the best contraceptive, and in fact, the point is that the resources that are going to be used for the RH bill, billions of pesos, would be better devoted, okay, to direct amelioration of the plight of the poor, including going to the conditional cash transfers program. Kung yun lang po pag-uusapan natin, yung pagpapabuti sa kalagayan na mahihirap. Mas mabuti po nandiyan na lang ilagay ang perang yan. Okay, so the Supreme Court, I believe, will be deciding on this bill tomorrow. We hope that they will keep these important policy considerations in mind. Okay? The poor are not going to be made less poor by having fewer of them. They're going to be made less poor if they are given all the tools to produce more for themselves, for their families, and for the country. Yun po ang susi sa paghihirap nila.
Mga kaibigan, on that note, we'd like to end our presentation today ng Tapatan sa Aristocrat. It's a pleasure to have these brilliant people with us today. How I wish they would be in public office one of these days for reasons na talagang may binatbat itong mga kasama natin ngayon. I'd like to thank everyone who took part sa ating palatuntunan. Until next Monday, we'll talk about more sensible issues at bantayan ninyo yung mga susunod pang pagtatanghal. Maraming salamat po sa pagdalo sa Tapatan sa Aristocrat. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.